Nancy Pelosi gave McChrystal the troops he wanted, that she didn't fight Obama on that. I disagree totally. I think that McChrystal has a plan. It's much like the plan, the surge in Iraq, and I think we should give them time to work. And I think the idea that we would wait for the electorate instead of having the military finalize this is not a plan.
Yeah, just going backwards from there, I never said that it was unconscionable that Nancy Pelosi gave McChrystal the troops. What I said was it was unconscionable that someone who hated the wars under George Bush would be so hypocritical as to keep her mouth shut and be silent about it now that there was a new president in. And that was what I said. And if you watch that videotape, you'll hear exactly that. General McChrystal is working towards a peaceful solution. He said it himself. He's shooting for reconciliation in the summer of 2011, and I'm afraid to say that I just don't think it's worth spending that much more time there. I think there's nothing like the peace that you can have today. And my mom always said, shoot for peace today, don't put off till tomorrow the peace that you can have today. The non sequitur there about the border with Pakistan and it has nuclear weapons. Well, there's a reason why we're going into Pakistan, because that's where the Taliban is. And the Taliban wasn't there prior to us going to Afghanistan. And yes, they're going to go right back into Afghanistan, and there's not much that we can do to stop it. I think it's time that I stick with my position. I think it's time that we come home.
Okay, thank you very much. That ends the segment on international and foreign policy. By far, the majority of questions, or the number one question from the audience is on health care when it comes to domestic issues. I'm going to ask the question as follows. All congressional Republicans oppose the recently passed health care bill. What would you do to stop implementation and funding for the Democrats' program? And even on the unlikely possibility that the recently passed health care bill is deficit neutral, Medicare is expected to be bankrupt by the year of 2017. What actions do you think should be taken to address that situation?
It's a lot to address in 2 minutes. But I would say this. I saw that health care bill. It was absolutely, I tell a lie. I read the 1,000-page bill, certainly parts of it. At 1,000 pages, that bill was an absolute monstrosity filled with just very convoluted and very bureaucratically jumbled information. Then they added another 1,000 pages to it. There is no way that the CBO was able to put a score on that thing 2 or 3 days after they got it, with another 1,000 pages or 1,500 pages added to it. I think that when Nancy Pelosi makes the statement that it's built, this is as good as Social Security being passed, she was actually saying that she was building it in the same way and with the same fervor that Social Security, which is a totally bankrupt program. I think that we have to go in on a legal basis because it makes mandates of citizens that it is not constitutionally able to do. But there are 2 ways to do this. One is a repeal, and that would be what I think every congressman who is elected by Republicans in 2010 would ask for, and that they should, as was asked by the Republicans, to start over again and to let the transparency be there from the beginning and to let the American people see what was in it, and then we could get an idea of what it would cost. I'd like to make a quick note that the Heritage Foundation, they gave me some information. I was briefed by them back in February. Do you know that the government is very, very bad at estimating what health care costs would be? Back in the mid-'60s, when they estimated what Medicare would cost in 1990, they said it would cost $9 billion. In actuality, it was $67 billion. Another program of Medicare in the mid-'60s estimated to cost $12 billion, cost $110 billion. These figures they've been giving us are as secretive and untransparent as the rest of the process was.
Okay. Not surprisingly, I was also opposed to the health care bill. I think there are a couple of things that we have to take into consideration. Of course, I also, the day that it went into law, I put up on my website that I made my pledge to work to repeal it. I think from a practical point of view, it's going to be difficult to do because we will not have a veto proof. Even if the Republicans won the House and won every Senate seat between now and 2012, we wouldn't have a veto-proof Senate. So, so I think that the light at the end of the tunnel is, fortunately, is in the has to do with the states' rights and going through the legal system. The good news there is, of course, is that what they've done, what they pushed on us, is utterly and completely unconstitutional. There's no time in American history where we have been compelled to buy something. We are forced to buy something, not just under penalty of fine, but penalty of imprisonment. So I think that that's going to be a tough sell to the legal system. I also think it's going to be a tough sell. There's another part of this which is difficult as well, which is that insurance, the insurance regulation business is clearly a state-oriented issue. The states have always regulated the insurance companies, and now for the first time, the federal government is effectively commandeering state legislatures. I cannot imagine that this will stand. And what Nancy Pelosi has effectively done by jamming this thing down our throats is she has forced this country into chaos in a way. We had a real opportunity to address healthcare from a free market perspective. The real issue here is the third-party payer, because here's a fundamental economic rule. If somebody else is paying for it, you tend to consume more of it. And here's another one. If somebody else is paying for it, you tend not to look at the cost. So we had a chance. Nancy Pelosi blew it. She sent this country into chaos and has pushed healthcare reform back for quite a long time. And in terms of what to do with Medicare, it's a bankrupt system. We have to deal with it over the long term, not over the short term.
Yeah, I would say that one of the things we should do, I do believe it is constitutionally flawed, and it will be thrown out. I've heard that some of the sections in it are not severable from the rest. So these mandates, which so many of us are upset about, that will make the whole thing unconstitutional. I would also bring up, though, I do think it would be good to go back to the beginning and do what Republicans plan to do, which was they proposed 37 bills, despite the fact that nobody ever heard that, and Nancy Pelosi said there was no Republican input. But what the Republicans did was to take those free market mechanisms, and they spread it into these 37 bills, each of which would talk about and address a very specific problem, whether it be portability or the cost or other issues that certainly the pre-existing conditions. That's the only way that these problems are going to be able to be reformed, one at a time, where you can see what works and what doesn't and move forward on each front. Thank you.
Okay, John, what do you believe should be the policy towards the 30 million illegal immigrants in the United States?
Well, it's not a great topic because, of course, I don't believe in amnesty. But I think more importantly, we have to start repealing the mandates that attract illegals here in the first place. The first and the biggest mandate is birthright citizenship, which was implemented with the 14th Amendment. That's something that we can just excise. We can excise that birthright citizenship clause out of the 14th Amendment. All the other mandates that attract folks here to live a better life, I think we can cut them off. We are losing hospitals in all these border towns all along the Southwest because they're being overrun with people demanding and requesting services. I support a temporary worker program. It's a system that worked actually pretty well. In fact, I recommend that we have one that actually offers some advantages to attract people to participate in it. Maybe allow them to keep some of the benefits that they might not otherwise get if they came here and worked illegally. That was a system that worked pretty well for a long time, and I frankly don't know why we don't have it. The issue of immigration, of course, is also partially a national security issue. I do want to make one point, though, that I, as the grandson of immigrants from Ireland, am pro-legal immigration. I'm not one of these people that wants to cut off the borders, seal off the United States. Again, isolationism is not only good, but it is ineffective at the end of the day. And I think that we need to also take to task the United States government for not doing a better job in getting legal immigration more streamlined and more effective. We have to have a good system that rewards people for getting in line, and we cannot reward people who don't.
Again, I think on many domestic issues, John and I are very much on the same page. I, too, do not believe in amnesty. You know, there